Alrighty, guys, welcome to yet another exciting episode of the Online Prosperity Show. And you already know this is the number one place where we unpack the real stories behind the people that are actually solving the toughest challenges. And today we're going to be diving into something that just doesn't affect business, but it also affects your relationships, your identity, and your peace of mind. I'm your host, Prosper Taruvinga, and if you've ever felt like maybe you're holding everything together, for everybody else while you're quietly falling apart yourself, then this episode is for you. And I promise you, this is one of those conversations where you're going to want to share this with somebody who needs to hear it. But before you get into that, before you do that, make sure you're subscribed to whatever platform that you're on or watching or listening on, because conversations like this don't just inform you, but they transform you. Now, today I've got somebody truly special I want to introduce you to. And she works in a space where if you don't know, you don't know. But we are living in this every single day. Okay. Now, Roslyn, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you very much for having me. I'm grateful to be here.
Absolutely. Well, the pleasure is all mine. And I love how humble you are, because for those that are watching right now, Roslyn Saunders is the CEO of Recover from Codependency. She's a counselor, NLP practitioner, and more importantly, she's somebody who's actually lived through the very thing that she now helps others heal from. So we're going to be talking a lot about lived experience, and I am going to advise our viewers and listeners from now on that your discretion is going to be advised, because we're going to be talking about addiction in the family, in her children, and in herself. And we're also going to be talking about the time when life got so heavy and she was in hospital and she literally asked them to, I won't go there, but she will tell us that whole story and how that all became reality in her life. But now she has gone on and helped 100 people, or over 100 people, to reclaim back their lives, rebuild their self-worth, and actually create what she now calls a new normal. So let me ask you, who's watching this right now, have you ever maybe put somebody else's needs ahead of your own, so much that you actually lost yours in the process? Okay, if this actually hit home, I want you to drop a me in the comments there, because today you're not going to be alone anymore. Now, Roslyn, I could go on and talk about things I'm not even qualified to talk about. Take us to the beginning, before all of this, before Roslyn Saunders. What did life look like? What did life look like before, and when codependency was actually running the show?
Well, thank you, Prosper. And I'll really take you back to it. It didn't really ever look any different. I was born in a small town in New Zealand, in the bottom half of the North Island, called Fielding. It's about 2 hours north of the capital city, Wellington. I'm one of 5 children in the family, and both my parents were addicts. My father was dead at just after his 48th birthday with alcoholism. My mother, to cope with what was going on in the home with regard to alcoholism, was addicted to prescription medication. So my parents were both using substances or pills or whatever they were using because of their unresolved issues, and they couldn't manage it. The number one reason any of us go to any addiction is we cannot manage our emotions. Doesn't matter whether it's food, whether it's sex, whether it's shopping, whether it's drugs, we're all looking for relief. So I'll go back again to, that's where I was born. My father died, as I said, when I was 16. So then what did I do? Obviously unknowing and unconsciously, I married an alcoholic when I was 20. to carry on the pattern, Prosper. That's all I knew. I was comfortable in that environment. I was comfortable around the arguments around drinking, the trying to stop my father from drinking, all of that dynamic, the frequency, which we frequently see, was in my home. So then when I met a young man at 18, I mean, if there was 100, let's say there was 100 young men in that room, I would have picked him because he matched my emotional programming. And
Absolutely.
our thoughts are electromagnetic, electric from our thoughts and magnetic from our emotions. So, of course, that's what I did. I got married at 20 and then went on to have 4 children of our own. We had our 4 children. I did the exact blueprint that what my parents had done. I didn't know any other way to live. I'm a hairdresser by trade. And I've had my own hairdressing salons for all of my life since I was 19, and large ones, some 8 and 9 staff. So that's what we did. And anyway, our marriage was falling apart. And in the year 1987, got that wrong, I was going to leave the marriage. I couldn't handle it anymore. And so I decided I would shift to Australia. In my unconsciousness, in my ignorance, I thought if I shifted to Australia and then my former husband said he wanted to come too, to give our family another chance, a new chance. And we'll shift over here, it'll be beautiful and warm. We can sit under the palm trees and everything will be blissful. So I thought. And again, I was unaware, I didn't know any different at that stage. We get over here, the same stuff came. All of my emotional baggage came as packed luggage with me. So once the honeymoon period of about a couple of months had worn off from being in a new country and bringing 4 children over here, then the rot started to come up again. I unknowingly thought if we shifted over here, my former husband wouldn't want to be at the hotel, wouldn't want to go down to the rugby club all the time. But of course, I didn't know that. And of course, as soon as we got to Brisbane, he found, a pub down the road, another rugby club. So the same patterns, also the same patterns were in me, I might add. I want to add here that I don't use substances. So I didn't use alcohol, pills, or needles. However, my addiction, my fatal addiction for me was codependency, which is people addiction or relationship addiction. And I want to point out here, Prosper, that my husband, he was addicted, he was alcoholic and addicted to the alcohol. His mother had been alcoholic. So you can see how we came down, and perfect match. He was addicted to the alcohol. I was addicted to him. I couldn't leave him. And when I'd leave him, the withdrawal of that would get so bad that I'd go back and I'd go back and I'd go back.
Absolutely.
So
And thank you.
I was no different. I didn't understand all this, of course, at this stage. So I started getting some support in 1990. I started going to a 12-step program called Al-Anon for families of alcoholics. And I started getting knowledge, and also another 12-step program, sometimes 3 meetings a day, called ACOA, Adult Children of Alcoholics. So I started to picture together and put together why my life was how it was. My biggest worry was that would carry on to my children.
Absolutely.
Anyway, so that's what I did. I started going to that, and that was the start of my journey. And then I still couldn't, once I understood that I was addicted, my addiction was codependency. Because I didn't use substances or needles or pills, it looked like I had it all together and I was running a business, living on the Brisbane River, looked like the good picture. So I bought a book in 1990 called Codependency No More by an author in America called M.E.D.I.A. I bought that book, Prosper, and I read it all night. I wasn't on every page or every line. Every word was me. I thought, bingo, this is what's wrong with me. I'm an addict too.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Now, Roslyn, I really appreciate you taking us this far into your journey, and we might just take a step back just so we can clarify a few things. And from what I'm understanding, fish do not see the water that they swim in, and you would have been brought up in and around this whole space
Yeah.
so much that you wouldn't have seen and known any better. But
I
around
had
you,
no other point of reference in my life.
absolutely. Now, around you as a kid, were there any at least role models that you would at least look up to, or were the parents the only sort of exposure that you had, as a child?
Other people?
Would,
No, the
would,
parents really. I think, no, there wasn't other role models. It was a very small town, and no, not really. And I think because you're in the house, you're absorbing all those patterns, that energy, that frequency of addiction, the arguments, the all of the stuff that goes on with alcoholism.
Absolutely. All right. So now that your person was now used to all of these emotions and things like that, could it have been that your codependency was because you wouldn't know how to live any better?
That's right. I didn't know how to live any differently. No, I
Mm,
didn't have the knowledge or the awareness. I had nothing outside of that reference because that's all I knew.
right. Now, your addiction obviously was not just personal, but your family also had their own different addictions. Now, what does that do to somebody emotionally behind closed doors if you're living with that every single day? Because some people might not quite register that that is taking a toll on their life
Their
because
own lives.
always
Yeah, I
because
agree. Thank you. Great question. Yeah, great. So I then transferred that to work addiction.
Mm,
So I was doing and control. I was trying to hold together like my dream of the perfect family. I was trying to make it happen, trying to fix it, which is what I did as a child, tried to stop my father from drinking so it would fix our family. So I carried on doing that. It set up my belief systems about myself
mm.
that I
Now,
carried those patterns on.
okay. So you keep using words like patterns, frequency, and beliefs. Could you maybe just explain what those are? Especially for those
Um,
that might not realize the kind of patterns that they're in, because as we have said, we can't see the air that we breathe.
That's right. So the patterns were subordinating to things, overworking, addiction to business, addiction to control. And also addiction to staying in a very, very toxic marriage that was killing me. And as you said, I got to the hospital in the year 2000. I was begging to die. I couldn't do it anymore.
Absolutely. And yeah, you've mentioned being in hospital, asking to be
I was
unalived.
just begging. I was just begging the doctors, please let me die. I couldn't do it anymore because, Prosper, by this time, my children were now in addiction. So it had gone on to the next generation. And what I want to point out to people is addiction is generational and progressive. Unless someone starts to turn that ship around and do the work and call it out.
So you were going to be okay leaving your kids? What was happening internally to you at that moment where you just wanted everything to not be there
End.
anymore?
Well, 3 weeks prior to that, because I'd gone back to my marriage for the fifth time in 10 years, back and forward, back and forward. And it wasn't just a night in a hotel because you'd had a row. It was like 6 months out, then back and forward. So my children were growing up in the same frequency, in the same environment, let's call it environment,
Mm,
that I grew up in. I'd repeated the same pattern. So to look for relief in their early teenage years, they started looking for relief in drugs and alcohol as well. That was my greatest, worst nightmare, that my children would transfer down to my children. And it has, and it did.
absolutely. Now, you've mentioned a couple of tools that you then latched onto, one of which was a book, the codependency book that.
M.E.D.I.A,
Yeah.
yes,
And then you also went to 2 or 3 different 12-step sort of
I
programs
did.
and things of that nature. How did you find out about these places? Because some people, if they knew places like this exist, they wouldn't continuously be in the same patterns.
Well, thank
In
you. Well, in those days, I looked up the Yellow Pages, and also I had a sister-in-law in New Zealand, and she said to me, Roslyn, you need to go to Al-Anon. She could see what was going on in our family. So in those days, I looked up the Yellow, and nowadays you would go onto the internet and look up where the 12-step meetings are. The 12-step program is a wonderfully spiritually engineered mandate for living.
mm,
So
okay.
that was the start of my journey. I also went on and did a lot of other things. I was seeking, I was hungry. And especially by now, I had some of my children heavily into deep addiction. So it was prisons, rehab, psych wards, open heart surgery. It was police, overdoses, all of those things. So I had to keep looking for different support for me.
Absolutely. Now, when somebody's in a situation like you were in, especially codependency, doesn't that just manifest as being supportive or being loyal? How do you differentiate between love and codependency?
When love is pain, it's not love, it's addiction.
Wow.
That's how you differ. If you're in pain and you think, oh, I'm in love, it's addiction. And also, you're saying about it, codependency is that interdependency is that you're caring and kind, but we cross the line. We do all that stuff to gain approval from others. We do it so people will like us, because you know why? We don't like ourselves. So we're reaching for people and places and things to fill the empty void inside of ourselves.
And in pursuit of that validation, we then end up, worshiping the very people that we're getting
And
that from.
subordinating, yes, pedestaling people because we feel so low, saying yes to things when we don't really want to, not having the ability to say no, not having the courage, not having the strong sense of self-worth, not even knowing. I didn't even know what my values were. Living outside of my values. I don't mean unlawfully, but doing things I didn't want to do. And then I'd become resentful and bitter at the people that I was doing them for.
Wow. Because obviously these are your loved ones. These are the people that some of which you would have, taken considerable care for, and yet, this is now sort of manifesting. Now, when this starts happening, obviously people will start looking for help like you did, and you did find that help. Did that resonate at the start, or was it easy to
Absolutely,
grasp?
it did.
Okay.
Absolutely. The book, as I said, that book gave me a reference to what's wrong with me. I'm a codependent addict. That's my addiction. Before that, I didn't think I had the addictions. I just thought it was my husband. But I was a co-addict. So that was help. Going to 12-step programs was very helpful for the first part of my journey. I also then went on and did a lot of personal development, went to courses. I was seeking really to find, to grow as a person and to grow my self-worth. And also in that, my thing was to be a good demonstration to my children, to clean up my own addictions. So in the year 2000, when I'd gone to the hospital because I was begging to die, that was the last time I went back to my marriage. I never went back to my marriage after that, because I knew if I went back, it would just be dead. Codependency kills, and that's kind of my message, is that it's insidious and it's cunning and it's baffling, but because it's not kind of out there and people don't really understand what it all is, all these little codependent behaviors they're doing.
So yours manifested in work, the control, and you just wanted to make sure that everything, you were validated and things of that nature. And what are other manifestations for people, or are they all the same? How would somebody?
Well, staying in a relationship that's not really right for you, and the thought of leaving just paralyzes you with fear. So you just keep doing more or trying to fix it, like I did. staying even in a job that you don't like. That's not good for your health, but we don't have the courage or the right support to help us build us so that we have the courage to make different decisions.
Absolutely. So you obviously went on and started accumulating all these tools that
Yes.
you're now utilizing. Can you maybe walk us through, pretty much post you having not gone back again? How did you then further your life or develop yourself?
Well, it was a long journey because, as I said, I couldn't get the support I needed. I would go to psychologists, psychiatrists. I went everywhere. I can take you on a trip around Brisbane. I've been here, there, everywhere. And they didn't get me because I presented quite well. I didn't look like an addict, but they didn't understand codependency. Sometimes I'd go to a psychologist and I would say, I'm working on my codependency one particular time. And she said, what's that? They didn't have the understanding. My mission is to bring out this, that codependency is just is the mother of all addictions. It sits underneath the other addictions. By that, what I mean is let's say people have alcohol, sex, shopping, pornography, eating, obesity, all of those things. If they stop that drug and don't go underneath and fix up the emotional reasons why they did it in the first place, all they're going to do is cross addict to something else. Another new relationship. I'll get another new relationship. I'll change jobs. But we keep meeting the same thing, the same people, different face, the same patterns in the new people because we haven't cleaned up our own internal dynamics around that. And that's what we're attracting. So for people that are in a relationship but are petrified to leave or petrified to even think about leaving, I'm not saying leave your relationship. I'm saying get the right support to get really, really honest and do the work on yourself. We can't change anybody else. We can't fix anybody else. I was going to fix everybody else while I wasn't looking at myself.
Is that the same as people pleasing?
Yes, the disease to please, the need to be needed. As I said, I'd go to places, I'd do things for people that I didn't even want to do, but I couldn't bear the thought if they didn't stay friends with me. This is not just intimate relationships. This is family relationships, it's work relationships, it's friendships, it's all around. If we are codependent inside of us, then most of our life is it's about spending as well, spending money on things. I would spend money on things and I would buy people things.
And
Because I needed to be needed.
that is a very expensive thing to have because if nobody, you're never going to be able to please anyone. And if that was the case, ice cream will come in one flavor. But look at how many flavors we've got because you can't please a lot of people. Now, you've obviously broken that pattern. And would you say right now you wouldn't be going back to any of those dependencies?
Absolutely. But I would also like to say that I do my recovery every day.
Yeah.
I have a different way of living. I have a new normal way of living now. And I'm number one in my life. I put myself first. My emotional sobriety or my emotional health is my number one value. And anything I look at doing, I've got connected to myself. I've built my self-worth up that I'm happy to be able to say no to things if I don't want to do it without a big story or without justifying or telling lies. If I used to say no to something, I'd build up a big lie or make up a story to cover it. I'm happy to say thanks very much. No, not interested now. I couldn't have done that.
So no is now a full sentence.
No is definitely a full sentence without a story. And that's what I teach my people, so that they have the self-worth to say no without explaining or justifying or telling lies about it.
Now, you were about to talk about your daily deliberate
Oh,
action.
so yes, thank you. So that was in the year 2000. So the first few years were quite rugged for me because I couldn't get the support I needed. And I vowed and declared if I can climb out of this myself, like as you said, you need people that have got out of the trenches from where you're wanting to get out of. That is the best professor on the planet to go to. So I vowed and declared because I knew in my heart that there's thousands, if not millions of people feeling like I did. Shame, guilt, all of this stuff, paralyzed with fear and staying in situations that weren't healthy for us. So I vowed and declared that that's what I'd like to do and to help others. And that's what I do today. I've written this book, my own book, which is Recover from Codependency, Sustainable Steps. So back to my my practice, my daily practices, meditation, exercise, breath work. And also, I'd like to say, I don't go where I don't want to go. I do what I want, when I want, how I want, and if I want. That might sound selfish. It doesn't mean I'm not a giving person. I'm a very giving person, but I'm giving from authenticity now, not so you like me or I don't want you to leave me. That's not giving, that's trading.
You see, what you're talking about is akin to the air hostess when they say you want to put your mask on first so that you will be able to then help others be, do, and have. Because if you're going to be giving from empty, then that's where obviously the burnout actually starts
Well, also,
manifesting.
at 100%, also the sickness. Your physical body starts to break down like mine did. Because we're not supposed to, the neuroscience and neuropsychology nowadays, I keep very up with what's going on out in the world, and I love it. That's part of my recovery also, and to be the best possible version of myself for my clients is I still study a lot of stuff around this stuff. And the body becomes the mind. We're not supposed to, most of us are living in a fight or flight situation most of our days and our lives. And we now know through the neuroscientists and neuropsychologists that when we live in that state all the time, then the body can't sustain it and it breaks down. And we now know that your genes, that your thinking creates your genes that create dis-ease.
Absolutely.
So
Now,
your autoimmune, multiple sclerosis, cancer even, all of these things, the body starts breaking down because we're not valuing ourselves. And in a lot of cases, when people are very sick, full-blown codependency, they maybe they're not putting themselves first, they're burnout, they're worried, they're addicted to anxiety and stress and fear. That's
now,
going around. They're addicted to their thoughts and suffering.
understandable, and thank you so much for that. Now, obviously, I'm also going to speak on the side of culture here, where, you know, in cultures like, say, Australia, where if you're a tall poppy, if you're now no longer looking after the rest of everybody else, there's that whole tall poppy syndrome set up. Does this not sort of go towards that, which then actually makes society resent the kind of person that you become based on them not understanding that you're trying to read yourself off of that codependency?
Exactly right. And in the process of recovery, if you ask anybody who's in recovery from any addiction, it doesn't really matter what their drug of choice is. Recovery is recovery, and it's an internal job. It's an inside out job. In the process of recovery, because you're changing, a lot of people will attack you. You're not who they used to be. You're not the person that did everything for them all the time. You're not that. So that's why you need a coach or a person or a support group to support you where you're going. And so a lot of my friends that I had years ago, they're not my friends. There's nothing wrong with them. It's just I've grown and I have a different way of living. I'm not judging them. They can do whatever they want. But I have a different way of living now.
Absolutely. And I certainly believe in life. We're here to live, to learn, and to contribute. So you've lived the experiences and you've learned how to recover from that. Now you're contributing by sending the elevator down. I mean, you've helped, as I've said earlier, over 100 people, start transforming.
More than, and I do workshops, and I'd like to also point that I'm still doing my recovery every day. I recovery isn't you do it and it's finished. You're kind of in recovery. It's a new way of living, and that's how I live now. My recovery is a way of living. It's a not one stop, do it and it's over and done with. And you go back to how you can't go back. You've grown in consciousness, you've grown in awareness, and your values change. What used to uh, draw me, it doesn't draw me, it's the same. But other things did draw me. My life is far more fulfilled with far more meaning.
Had we met you at that time, been able to have such a conversation with you at all?
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. But
So
I am a
who
seeker. I love learning, and I'm still learning. We'll all be learning till the day we leave this planet. And the good thing is that there's becoming more awareness around with podcasts such as yours. Like now we're in a time where ignorance is a choice, actually, because there's so much around that we can learn. So I didn't have that 25 years ago. There was nothing. I don't even think there was the internet, was there?
I wouldn't think so at all. But why is
No.
it that so many people struggle to access this help, that they actually need, even if they know something ain't right?
It's very difficult for people to get honest, to get rigorously honest. And I'll tell you why the one thing is we can't be rigorously honest. We're scared of what we have to let go of.
So
Let's say someone's not really happy in their marriage, but they're covering it over or pretending they're happy or going on a holiday and buying a new house or getting a new car or getting a new dress, whatever it is. If they got really, really honest, they would be scared that their marriage may not last. So instead of facing that, they will keep the game going. They will keep the facade going.
it's like spinning plates in the air and just making
or
sure.
or holding say in my book, holding beach balls underwater. This one pops up, this one pops up until it gets exhausting. Keeping the game going so it looks all right because of your fear, and because you need to get someone that you trust, and has, my opinion, has done the journey. I wouldn't be for everybody, done the journey there. Someone that can relate to my story and have the raw courage, the guts and courage, don't know whether I'm supposed to say guts, the raw courage to say, that's me, but I'm too scared. So make that little phone call, just chat, buy the book like I did, buy the book, and just start. And then
Mm,
find someone to walk beside you, because
I
not
see.
everybody's going to like the new you. They're going to tell you you're nuts, you're this, there's something wrong with you, you need mental health problems.
There's the whole cultural thing as well. If I can just go back to that, Roslyn, where I think in Australia they say you have to drink some cement, and stiffen up and have it cut back or whatever it is. What's your take on that?
Um, well, I think that's really pretend. It can be an avoidance, a distraction, and pretending. Like just stiffen up and bear it, grin and bear it. You know. I think that can be another. What we're doing, Prosper, is we're pushing everything down. The truths that are trying to come up to tell us through sickness, through divorce, through loss of money, through loss of a job. They're signs.
But some people might be able to escape, like you would have done, escape the relationship they're in, but eventually rush back into a whole new setup as well. Because wherever you are, there you are. You
That's
did
right.
mention you shifted from New Zealand and came to Australia, but it only took a couple of months when you unpacked.
Yes, that's right.
Everything also
It
came
all
out
came
like
up.
it.
It all came up for a chat again. You're exactly right. We call that a geographical. So you can do a geographical in relationships, in jobs, in friendships. But if you don't do the internal work on yourself, you're going to keep attracting the same lesson. It's knocking on your door. You need to attention for this. If, let's say someone gets cancer, let's say they get cancer, God forbid, and they have it cut out. If they have that cancer cut out and they go back to living how they were, then it's going to pop up somewhere else. We've all heard of that. We've got to look at the emotional reason. The latest Harvard stats are 90% of people will go to a normal doctor, an M.D., for an emotional reason.
Wow.
The emotion is underneath that's driving it. It might be a rash on your skin, or it might be MS, or it might be autoimmune. Autoimmune is a huge, because living this way when you're suppressing your needs and not being honest and haven't got the courage to live authentically, it's suppressing your immune system.
You know what you're talking about is, have you ever noticed if you stop driving your car, it starts dying? Like you don't move it for a while, the tires start flattening, you know, the windscreen just starts cracking by itself. Is that the same thing that is happening to our bodies because we have stopped valuing ourselves and we have stopped really checking in, meditating, exercising, and everything else? And so the body just thinks, oh, wait a minute, maybe.
Break, yes, similar. And it's not like you've stopped doing. Maybe you've, like me, you've never really done it because I was born into it. So I wasn't taught, I wasn't demonstrated for that. But yes, that, you know, that I believe that codependency and emotional stuff is underneath most sicknesses, and Harvard are saying that as well now. And also the neuroscientists and the neuropsychologists, psychiatrists, that, you know, we've left out, we've searched for the big houses, for the job, for the money. Nothing wrong with all those things, but they won't fill you in the end. You'll feel empty and unfulfilled because you're not, haven't got yourself in here. You clean up, you come, you get someone to help and guide you and walk beside you to do the internal work. You've got that wherever you go, all around the world, whatever.
So if somebody would watch this today, Roslyn, and think, okay, I see myself in Roslyn's story, I've seen the patterns, I need those patterns broken, and they sort of come to you, what are they to expect?
To expect that I support them, see where they're at right now. I'm mindful to help my clients grow as where they can emotionally. I'm about sustainability, not about a quick fix. I say to them, if you're looking for a silver bullet, I'm not it. Because I tried all those silver bullets and they don't work for long. You get the high from them. I gently guide them and I start setting them tasks, and I start getting them to unload and start to get more and more honest as they start to trust me.
See,
and sometimes they can talk to me, and as time goes on, where they've never shared it with anybody else, and of course it's highly confidential, so it goes nowhere. I don't know anybody, it's outside of your family and friends often. And I did it. We'll go to our family and friends and we'll be telling this story all the time. One, they've had a gut full of us saying the same story and not doing anything about it. So it's best to find someone neutral and that's not connected to all of that.
absolutely. And I really appreciate this because your life story and your experience have so much value, in as much as if somebody comes to you, you can pick from a lived experience that you have gone through from parents, children, loved ones, and just the whole life in general, so much that it's not necessarily going to be, oh, she's just going through the motions, because you're not just teaching this from theory, you've actually lived
I'm
this.
teaching it from my heart, and we follow the curriculum of my book as a course, but which is all my distilled knowledge and information and story. But I'm teaching them, first of all, they need to feel safe. They need to feel held. They need to feel like they've got scaffolding around them. Some people are very, very sick. Quite a few people, I'd say, that have come to me have just recently tried to commit suicide.
And for those that are just really resonating with what we're talking about today and they didn't know, because what I think you have done is you've given language to something that a lot of people have been silently going through and didn't know how to express it. And maybe when they actually did express it to other people, like you say, they just shrugged off as, don't you worry, it's maybe it's mental health or an autoimmune or things of that nature. Now, where can
Or
people?
you're overreacting, or there's something wrong with you. What's wrong with you? You live on the Brisbane River, you got a business, like what's wrong with you? And then you come home even worse because we go to the wrong people. But in my case, I couldn't get the people to
Mm,
go to that understood me. So that I want to be that person, the understanding, I help them build up from the inside out. And I give them little muscle building. You can't go to the we can't send someone else to the gym and they build our muscles for us. I wish we could, but we can't. So it
absolutely.
does take commitment. It takes work. There's times of withdrawal and pain. I hold them through those times instead of them going back to the old behaviors or old addictions.
Where would somebody go, Roslyn, to get started on that on the internet so they can find you and maybe?
Thank you. So my website, roslynsaunders.com.au, there's quizzes on there that you can answer, and also that you can ring me or find my phone numbers on my website as well. You can book a time. We have a chat about where you're at. And, just all I'm saying to people, if you're resonating with some of this stuff and feel the fear or the paralyzation of stepping out a little bit, just take one baby step.
Mm, absolutely.
Then you can take another baby step, and then you take another baby step with the right people.
Absolutely. It is the small hinges, like you said, that swing the biggest doors. And I'll make sure that all those links are in the show notes below. Now, Roslyn, I
Also,
do.
people could order my book on Amazon, and my journeys in here, but also very practical tools in here. It's a very practical book. It's what I needed 25 years ago.
Absolutely. Now, let's go back to that girl 25 years ago that you keep telling us about.
Mhm.
If she would show up in your space today, what would you tell her?
I tell her there's another way to live. I know you can do it because I've done it and I can show you how.
And that's in that book. Absolutely.
Definitely. And
Great.
and I'd and I would because people come to me and they're justifying, so I cut the BS. I get to the truth. I'm not harsh. I'm very, very caring. I was that person. So I don't judge. I can't judge. I was you. They feel safe with me because whatever they're telling me, I've done it or thought about doing it. So they feel safe to unload more and more. And then
Absolutely.
we can approach each step. And
Uh,
especially like, I help them not react to things, to learn how to pause, the power in the pause and just respond. That takes a lot of work to teach people for all of us. We're all very good at just reacting. What about pausing, sitting in the pause? That's not easy for people because it's uncomfortable.
because then you get to meet yourself in that process.
That's it. That's it. You're
uh,
onto it.
Now, Roslyn, I can't thank you enough for the time that you spent on the call with me today. And it does look like, I think it was Tony Robbins that mentioned that life doesn't just happen to us, it happens for us.
For us. I
And
love it.
in this particular instance, obviously things at the time you would not have been able to comprehend what was happening, but you did pay close attention because now you do have a good story to tell that is now helping more than hundreds and all the other people that you chose to help. I've got one last question. When you discovered that I am somewhat healed or taken away from what made you decide, let me go out and help others? Because somebody else would have just curled into fetal position. Mine, I've sorted myself out. Why would you go out and want to be the one that extends the hand to others that are going through what you went through?
Thank you. Because I have a fire in my belly to help others that were feeling and lost and frozen in fear, like I was, and I couldn't get the help.
So you literally have created the person that you would have wanted to meet 25 years ago.
Yes, exactly. I wish I'd have had me but I also on that, I don't believe I was meant to have me because in my struggle and clawing myself out of the ditches and the 2 steps forward and one back, that I think if I'd have found someone like me and maybe I'd have got right quicker, I may not have such a fire in my belly. So I think it's all divinely planned. And I love what you say, and I tell my clients that as well. This is happening for you. And then they'll go, no, it can't be. But I help them. And in time, as we start to see, we look back and we see how even their traumatized childhood was meant for them. They built resilience. They built this. All of these things. And also, I'd like to say is I'm very big on people taking 100% responsibility for their part in it. And people will come to me and go, oh, they did that to me. I'll go, no, nobody does anything to us. We allow it. And you can say no. But while we're projecting out and blaming and not taking responsibility, we're never going to heal, are we?
Absolutely. When we were growing up, I was always reminded whenever you point a finger at somebody, three are pointing back at you, and you're only pointing with the one. And if anything, you know what I've learned from your conversation with me today, Rose? That whatever is happening in your life, pay attention, because one day you'll have a good story to tell, not only on the Online Prosperity Show, but in life, and you can actually help others be, do, and have a happier existence. So thank you so much for having gone through this
journey. Be the demonstration of that story. Be the living demonstration of the story.
Absolutely. Well,
thank you very much. I'm really, really grateful that you've had me on.
What a
It's so lovely to meet you.
Absolutely. What a conversation. Now, this was not just about codependency for those that are watching and listening right now. It was about identity, it was about boundaries, self-worth, and that quiet strength that it takes to choose yourself once again. And if something in this episode really spoke to you, I encourage you not to keep it to yourself. Please do share this with somebody that you know is quietly going through codependency and they don't quite have the words for it or the language to actually get themselves out of it, and they might be silently struggling. So this could actually be the conversation starter. And if you are ready to take on that very first step yourself, I encourage you to head over to roslynsaunders.com.au, take the free quiz, explore her book and program so you can actually start that journey back to yourself. And remember, you don't have to struggle to break free. I mean, there's people that have already paved the way in order for you to be, do, and have a happier existence. And I can't wait to see what you're going to do with this information. And in the meantime, thank you so much for listening. Bye for now.